It's easy
Exactly.
to protect people's rights when everything is unicorns and rainbows. It's hard to stand up for individual choice. When you see, and here's the real crux of it to me, Chris. And I used this phrase for a while, and I had a lot of people say, man, I really don't like it when you say that. But I'm going to say it to you because I think the fact that people say they don't like it when I say this is exactly why I say it. Because I believe that the foundation of libertarianism is that I'm allowed to be as stupid as I want to be as long as I don't hurt you or take your stuff.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.
Welcome to the Party Path. This is Fountainhead Forum 388. I've got Donald Rainwater, who has run for governor twice in the state of Indiana. And in 2020, he got the highest vote total in the history of the Libertarian Party in a gubernatorial race, in a fully contested gubernatorial race, which was almost over 11% in the vote. And both parties were competing against him. So that was one of our best races ever. And we're going to talk about that and what the Libertarian Party is doing and just how, what makes a good campaign, what makes a bad campaign. How are you, Don?
I'm doing pretty good, Chris. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. First of all, Don, how did you become a libertarian?
Well, that's an interesting story, and I will use kind of part and parcel of this. I'll say that I think that most of us are born libertarian, and we are influenced through education and parental upbringing and society to either drift into the right authoritarianism or the left. And about 2015, I had a reimagining, if you will, of my libertarian human nature by getting pissed off because the state of Indiana was talking about raising the cigarette tax $2 a pack in order to encourage people to stop smoking and raise money for the roads. And I personally was offended intellectually by the fact that the government was trying to convince me that they could both stop people from smoking and raise money for the roads at the same time. Because the reality is people were either going to stop smoking and they weren't going to collect the $2 tax, or they were going to collect the $2 tax and people were going to keep smoking. You couldn't have it both ways. So their propagation of BS got me really irritated, and I decided I was going to do something about it and get off the couch and run for office. But I couldn't run as a Republican because they were the ones propagating the lie. And I couldn't run as a Democrat because they like to raise taxes too. So I looked around and I found that the Libertarian Party most closely resembled what I believed in personally. And as I said when I started out this explanation, I think that we're all born with the human nature to want to be independent and to want to be able to do what we want to do. I mean, as we're growing up, we rebel against our parents' authority. We rebel against school authority. It's just human nature to say, hey, don't try to tell me what to do. I'll make my own choices and my own decisions. So I think we're all really libertarian at our core. It's what we've been raised to think or raised to believe, and how society has influenced us to believe that we must have someone smarter than us telling us what we should do and how we should do it that has caused the authoritarian problems that we have in our corrupt government today.
So there wasn't any particular person or any book you read or anything like that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Mm-mm. No,
That's
it was really if you will, a self-awakening.
having lived in Ohio for 6 years, I've gotta say the Midwest, the red team is completely worthless in the Midwest. There are no Ron Pauls in the Midwest.
Uh, other than
Yeah.
Rand and Thomas Massey down in Kentucky, but you
Yeah,
don't really consider them
if
Midwest.
you consider Kentucky part of the Midwest, yeah, but I'm
Well, they're close enough to have an impact. Living in central Indiana, I'm about right now I'm about an hour and a half from Kentucky.
I guess
My
I could
father Oh, go ahead.
I guess, I could define the Midwest as the core of the Big Ten states when
Right.
it was the Big Ten.
Yes.
That's Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
I lived in Ohio and they raised the taxes in Ohio as much as the blue team did. Although this is kind of weird. Usually they're doing everything they can to take money away from the roads. So they actually try to do something for the roads, although usually it's just
Well,
they raise the gas tax. But yeah,
let's be honest.
yeah,
They label the tax increase for the roads, and
yeah,
as soon as they get it, they redirect it somewhere else.
because roads are popular. Yeah, roads. Yeah,
Yes. Well, it's like education. They say that about 60% of Indiana's state budget is spent on education.
yes,
And that money's not going to the classroom, and it's certainly not helping the children, which is why I am actively a proponent of um, privately accredited or non-accredited educational platforms for families because uh, government education has failed and it will continue to fail, and it doesn't matter how much you can flush however much money you want to down a toilet, it's still a toilet.
yeah, yeah. The money hole. So you ran for governor in 2020. Had you run for any office before that?
I had actually I ran for state senate in 2016 here again because they were talking about raising the gas tax, and it really got me motivated. So I ran for state senate against. It just so happened that I lived in the district. Um, the current state senator there at the time was the guy that wrote the budget. So I ran against the guy that wrote the budget. We went to a candidate forum during that election. Afterward, he was standing there and he said, Don, they consider me the most libertarian senator down at the state house. And I looked at him and I said, well, Luke, that's why I'm running. Um, it was a learning experience. 2 years later, in 2018, I ran for state representative. And then the next year, um, a group of people in Westfield, Indiana, reached out to me and convinced me to run against the mayor. I got 40% of the vote in a two-way race. And the actual difference between him and me was just a little bit more than 1,000 votes. And we spent $6,000, and he had to spend about $55,000 and do a TV commercial in order to get his voting base out, in order to make sure that he won.
Well,
And
that's good. I like to say this, like, if we're not winning, if we're making them spend lots and lots of money,
right.
that's a good thing too. I mean, it's like all this. all this money they're going to try to put up against Thomas Massey in Kentucky. But
Yes.
we'll go on that. Don. So you ran for governor in 2020, and I think we all know one big reason why you got a lot of votes. But you can tell us the story about starting with when did you decide to run for governor of Indiana, and what was the whole process throughout all this?
Well, um, I really after I ran for mayor of Westfield, Indiana, um, I wanted to try to find somebody within the party in the state of Indiana uh, that I felt I could put my support behind to run for governor as a libertarian. And I talked to a lot of the people that had been mentoring me and that I trusted and had developed friendships with. One of those people was Mark Rutherford. Um, I tell people all the time I consider myself a Mark Rutherford libertarian. If there's anybody who's had an influence on me as a libertarian, I would say it's Mark Rutherford. So we started looking for someone that we felt was the right person to run. There was somebody who had identified that they were going to run in the state of Indiana, and we didn't feel like they represented libertarianism in the way that we thought it should be represented. And we just couldn't find anybody else to do it. And the comment was made to me, well, Don, why don't you do it? And I said, well, wasn't really planning on doing that. But so I talked to some other people and got a lot of people who were supportive of how I wanted to run a campaign. We went to the state convention, I believe it was March 6th of 2020, and got the nomination. And the next day, the governor of the state of Indiana came out with his mask mandate because, of course, this was during the pandemic. And he
Yes.
started shutting the state down. And so, we ran a campaign on the idea that government shouldn't be telling us that we have to stay home from work, that we have to wear a mask, that we have to take a vaccine. That should be a personal choice. And that got a lot of people's attention because I was the only one of the three candidates that wasn't promoting the idea that government should tell everybody what they have to do and how they have to do it in order to protect themselves from a virus.
And so you got March 6th would have been a Friday. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that was the days Austin, the county judge in Austin, and the county judge in Travis County and the Austin mayor said, "Oh, South by Southwest is canceled," which really sent shockwaves because that's such a big event. And then it wasn't really until about next week that the country went completely nuts
Right.
because it was just Austin and Travis County there. I don't know if there's anything local that happened before the state of Indiana, but so you all got your convention in just in time. Some of the states,
Absolutely.
some of the states did not get their state conventions in. Texas,
Right.
there was I can't remember how we nominated delegates for national from Texas, but it was such a mess. And of course, the national convention was supposed to be in Austin that year, and we lost that. So, but what was your initial reaction to all of this from day one, Don?
To all the pandemic mandates, you mean?
Yes, all the pandemic mandates.
Well, once again, I am a big believer in uh, tell me what the facts are and let me make my own decisions.
Yeah.
And so whenever government says, well, you just need to do what we tell you, there are phrases that immediately turn me into a skeptic. Pardon me. Trust the science. is one of those. You know, in the Dark Ages, they used to do bloodletting to treat people for severe illnesses. That was the science at that time. We know better today because science matures and evolves in its level of knowledge. The science today, and we've seen this with the pandemic 6 years later, right? We know now that things we were told then were purely not right. You know, I remember when the vaccine came out, they said you need to take the vaccine because it will keep you from getting sick and it will keep you from spreading it to someone else. And none of that was true about the vaccine. You take the vaccine, you can still get sick and you can still give it to somebody else. So phrases like trust the science just make me crazy, because how about you tell me the facts and then let me decide, not have somebody else tell me what I have to do.
Well, we don't. First of all, we don't trust science. We trust scientists. I mean, yeah. But anyway, uh, so you were in an Indianapolis suburb, is that right? Westfield, is
That's
that?
correct. Yeah.
Well, was there what kind of pushback was already starting? Were you organize any protests or anything like that? Or
Well, there were a lot of people that were organizing protests. And, you know, here's the interesting thing. When the governor did what he did in Indiana,
yes,
people who had supported him were so upset and so turned off by what he was doing and how he was approaching it that they started looking around for someone else that supported and shared their perspective on what government should do in a crisis.
yes, and that was Eric
Fortunately,
Holcomb.
fortunately, they looked around and they found me.
Or even, when the government can arbitrarily declare an emergency and they can just say, "Oh, this is
That's
an
right.
emergency," and make up an emergency. It wasn't even an emergency. And of course, that was Eric Holcomb.
That's
So,
correct.
yeah, John, part of the reason why I brought you on here is I do consider you to be one of the major heroes of 2020. And
Well, I appreciate that.
I think and the point is we didn't have enough. Where were these other people, and why weren't they, where was LP National? Where was, and I don't know if LP, it sounds like LP in Indiana did go after this issue.
Oh, absolutely. You
And
know, the Libertarian Party in Indiana was very supportive um, of now and see, here's the problem, right? There are very few people, libertarian or otherwise, who have not been impacted in their thought processes by public education. And public education teaches to respect and listen to authority. So even libertarians, in their philosophical desire to have a free society, in a crisis, it's human nature, I believe, to fall back into what you've been taught to believe. And so I think there were a lot of libertarian folks who embraced the idea that, you know, well, personal responsibility comes before independence in a crisis. And I heard a lot of people criticize my stance, and these were libertarian folks, criticized my stance because they felt that it was our responsibility to protect others from a personal responsibility standpoint, not from an authoritarian tell somebody else what to do, but you should inherently want to wear a mask and stay 6 feet away from people and in order to protect others. And while I understand that perspective, I think that first and foremost, we have to understand that, to me, personal responsibility is I have to make the decision for myself how to protect myself. You need to figure out how to protect you. But when we start telling each other how to do it, that's when the authoritarianism creeps up. That's where the tyranny starts to creep up, because we think that our way is better than somebody else's way, and everybody needs to do it the way we think is right. And that's where it becomes a slippery slope, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think this creates kind of a very did create one philosophical dilemma for libertarians, in the sense that some libertarians will say, or maybe not, maybe a dilemma about strategy, that the most effective way to oppose, some will say that to oppose mask mandates, I should absolutely positively refuse to wear a mask mandate, and others will say, well, you should do it voluntarily so they don't force you to do it. And I think when you're and I think that's a very, we as I don't know any libertarian, for example, who says, well, I don't wear my seatbelt because of seatbelt laws. But I which I think would be kind of silly, but
Well, and you're right. I wear a seatbelt because if I have an accident, it helps to protect me a little bit. I
but
don't wear it because the government tells me I have to,
but
but
I
I
do
also don't wear it because the government says I have to.
but I think masking kind of, for some people, the mask wearing a mask, became a symbol of telling people, hey, I do support these mandates.
And see, that's
And
silly to me.
not wearing a mask was really, I think, the only way to say, "No, I don't support these mandates." So, and there's another question that comes up too, and, again, you wanna fight the mandates, you wanna fight these policies. Say, do you fight them on a philosophical round? But some people would say, "No, we don't wanna just fight the policies. We have to fight the scaremongering, surrounding these policies," And I think that also, and some libertarians, were just going on saying, "This isn't an emergency at all." Which, obviously we're not scientists and we don't take a position on science, but,
Right.
yeah, so that creates another dilemma, I mean, certainly hear libertarians get, some will say, World Trade Center was an inside job. Well, I think we could oppose the Patriot Act just because it's a bad law and not have to go down those other rabbit holes, which I think
You're absolutely
do
right.
sometimes
And
serve as a distraction.
well, and the reality is you can say it was an inside job. That's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion, but it doesn't change the fact that and that's the thing that I think, um, the foundation of what you're saying is where we need to focus is let's stop trying to talk about the symptoms and let's treat the actual disease. And the actual disease is whether there was a pandemic or not
Yep.
that's not what we need to debate. What we need to debate is should government tell the citizenry what they can and cannot do
Yeah.
if there's a pandemic? And
Yeah.
where is the limit? How is because what we're supposed and you know, I am not an anarchist. I'm a minarchist, if you will. I believe that a certain amount of government to protect our individual rights was the intention of the founders. And so if I have laws that protect you from me breaking into your house and stealing your stuff, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is a government that says there's a virus going around, you can't leave your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, I really also think we have to be careful with the language, language that we use. I mean, there is no such thing as public health.
That's correct.
Individuals
Just
have
like there's no such thing as public money.
Yeah, individuals have health, and
That's right.
Don, if you don't want to answer this question, that's fine. But who do you think really failed during all this? Who disappointed you? I know who disappointed me.
Well, I'm not gonna go into specifics as far as leadership within any particular context.
Yeah,
I will tell you that in my opinion, what disappointed me was the uh, large number of people who thought that it was okay to suspend individual rights during a crisis. I think if there's any time when individual rights need to be protected, it's during a crisis. It's easy
exactly.
to protect people's rights when everything is unicorns and rainbows. It's hard to stand up for individual choice. When you see, and here's the real crux of it to me, Chris. And I used this phrase for a while, and I had a lot of people say, "Man, I really don't like it when you say that." But I'm going to say it to you because I think the fact that people say they don't like it when I say this is exactly why I say it. Because I believe that the foundation of libertarianism is that I'm allowed to be as stupid as I want to be as long as I don't hurt you or take your stuff.
Yes,
If I want to go out and play in the interstate and I don't damage somebody's car when they hit me, that's my problem. Now I've heard for decades, you know, I need to be made to be more healthy because my unhealthy habits cause somebody else's health insurance premiums to go up. And I say that's BS until we get government interference out of health insurance and
yeah,
let the free market determine the cost of health insurance. And then if you can show me an actuary who can give me mathematical uh, foundation for the fact that me being unhealthy makes everybody else's health insurance premiums go up, then we can talk about that.
yeah,
But but this idea that I gotta protect you from yourself. No, no. It is nobody's responsibility to protect anybody from themselves.
yeah. How much when you were out campaigning, how much time did you spend talking about these mandates, Don? Because
Oh, I would say the majority of what we
yeah,
talked about was the mandates and how that illustrated. I always tried to take other important policy issues and illustrate what was going on with government by talking about how they paralleled or intersected with mandates. Because the idea, one of the ways that I think we can start influencing people, and maybe it's wore off to the point where it's too late. Maybe people
yeah,
aren't paying attention to it anymore. But I still think it's valuable to say that if you don't agree with mandating masks or mandating vaccines, you shouldn't be mandating public education either. You shouldn't be
yeah,
mandating uh, there's a whole list of things that you can parallel that
Yes.
to.
Yeah. Don, I would like to go over this election just a little bit. It almost, overall, there were a little over 3 million voters, and uh, Eric Holcomb got 1.7 million at 56%. Woody Myers, the blue candidate, got about 32, and you got 11.44%, which was
Right.
a very good. And I'm just looking at this breakdown. First of all, Myers only won 3 counties, which were Lake County, which is the northwest part, which is
Right.
basically Chicago suburbs.
That's correct.
Ray County, which is Bloomington, which is where Indiana University is. So you got a
Right.
lot of academics there. So that's not really a shocker. And then
Right.
Marion County, which of course is Indianapolis.
Right.
So, uh, but otherwise, it was pretty. It almost looks like really you took a lot of votes. You didn't necessarily take votes from Holcomb, but you might have taken votes away from Myers. Is that fair to say or not?
Well, I would here's what we believe to be the truth.
Yeah.
I took a lot of votes away from Holcomb.
Yep.
And Holcomb, because he did mandate a lot of things, was able to take a lot of votes away from Myers, because Dr. Woody Myers was, here again, he's a medical doctor. He had been in charge of the health department when we had a Democrat governor.
Oh.
And he was very, very forthcoming with the idea that he would have an all-out mask mandate, and if you didn't follow it, he would have you arrested. And so I believe there were a lot of moderate Democrats that voted for Holcomb, because with Republicans like Eric Holcomb, you don't need Democrats.
Yep.
And so the more libertarian-minded Republican voters voted for me. But that will also show you that there's probably only about 10%, 11% of the voters in the state of Indiana who are libertarian-minded.
Yeah.
And that's problematic.
Your best totals were in going by county: Putnam, Jay, and Martin
Right.
counties. What can you
Rural
say?
areas.
Yeah,
hmm
Yeah.
But we did get second place votes
Yeah.
in, about a third of the Indiana counties. I think we have 90, I want to say we have 92 counties in Indiana, and I got second place votes in, I think, 33 counties.
Yeah, you were over. Yeah, it looks like you were over 20% in about 18 counties.
Yeah.
There were. I am going to just bring up too some of the counties where you did the worst. Floyd County, which I don't know where's that.
I
4%.
believe that's down by Kentucky. I believe.
Yeah, and then there's Lake, which is the northwest. St.
Right.
Joseph,
Which is South Bend, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Yeah, Vanderburgh. That's Evansville.
Yeah.
Warwick. Yeah, just 7.8 in Monroe. That's where IU is. Yeah, it's a.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Just thought it was worth looking over. Yeah, did you have any incidents happen or anything really crazy happen or not?
No, I wouldn't know. I don't think we had anything like that.
Yeah. Anybody show up, say, no, you're being, because Donald, I don't think, Joe and Spike talked enough about this. And they're really good people, but, it's like, I was at 2 events there, one event for Joe and one event for Spike, and they had an hour and they talked about it for less than 5 minutes. I'm like,
Right.
why? It's.
Well, everybody's different.
Yeah.
And here again, I think that there are a lot of folks within the Libertarian Party who run for office to educate.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If that's what if that's what you
Mhm.
want to do and that's your goal is to educate, I think that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I think that there are, those are the people, educators, activists. We need those in the Libertarian Party. But I think that if we want to win elections, now this coming from somebody who's run and not won, I haven't won, but in my opinion, I have run the races that I have ran based on the philosophy that what I want to do is articulate the libertarian perspective on the issues that the voters who are going to go to the polls and vote care about the most. And I believe that if I lay out my libertarian philosophy in a way that the average voter who's going to show up at the polls can look at me and say, hey, that's what I think too. I agree with him. I like the way he said that. I'm going to vote for him. That, to me, is the strategy that we need in order to make an impact at the polls. I'm not going to convince 4 million Hoosiers to follow the libertarian philosophy to the left. But if I can connect on 2 or 3 or 4 issues that are really important to them, and I can show them that the libertarian philosophy actually is the same thing that they believe in those 3 or 4 areas, and they can identify with me, and they decide to vote for me, then next time they're going to listen to the next libertarian too. And that, to me, if we want to win elections, we've got to stop trying to change people's minds, and we've got to find common ground that connects us with those people. They might not even be 50% libertarian in across the board philosophy. But if we can connect on 2 or 3 items where they go, I've never heard anybody talk about that like that. And you know what? I agree with you. And I can vote for you. That's progress. And I think that's important at the polls. And like I said, I think there's a place for the educators and the activists, but I think that candidates need to remember, if I'm running for dog catcher, then my opinion on tariffs probably doesn't matter to the people who are going to vote for me for dog catcher.
True. Yeah.
And that's a place where I think we sometimes fail ourselves and fail the voters, because we do spend an awful lot of time talking about things that maybe are issues that aren't directly related to the office we're running for.
True.
And that's activism. And like I said, I think activism is very important. But I think sometimes when we're practicing education and activism as a candidate, we can turn people off to voting for us because we're talking about things that aren't relevant to that particular voter.
Yeah. There was, Don, I brought this up because I really think the Libertarian Party missed a huge opportunity in 2020. I think if they'd really screamed and shouted about this nonsense, a lot more people would have gotten involved, and it was really and I heard very little from it, and I think partially also because I can think of one big donor who completely betrayed the liberty movement during all this. But what can you say about that? Or if you don't want to say anything about that,
Well, I think that, you've got, I believe that we as libertarians, when we are running for office or when there is uh, let's take, for example, right now, one of the big topics in Indiana is the SNAP funding. Now, from a purely libertarian perspective, no libertarian believes that the government should be handing out food stamps. We believe that that should be a voluntarist activity, whether it be civic organizations or religious organizations, right? It should be a charitable endeavor, not a government-run endeavor. But I tell people every day in Indiana, I'm perfectly fine giving people food stamps, and I think that if the government has made that promise, they should continue to keep it until we stop giving $1 billion a year to the Indiana Economic Development Corporation for them to turn around and give 35 or 50-year sales tax exemptions to Meta. And to me, the problem of uh, corporate welfare is a much bigger problem that impacts many more people, at least in the state of Indiana, than food stamps. Because I know that in Indiana, we spend more money on corporate welfare and economic development, if you will, both at the local, county, and state level, than we do on food stamps. And so that's something to me that, here again, when you start talking about the practicality of what's going on, when people are upset because uh, a family member who, let's say their family member is uh, on disability, is going to lose their food stamps, or because somebody who has um, been getting their health insurance through the marketplace is concerned that their uh, premiums are going to triple. Uh, that's an individual who the government has created this need for dependency, and now they're not delivering on the situation they created, while giving all of our tax dollars to corporate entities that really don't need it. And I think that when we talk about those things, if we talk in more of a practical aspect and we let people know, yes, I understand that if the government hadn't created this situation, you wouldn't be in this situation. And if this were something where the government didn't do food stamps or subsidies for health care, we wouldn't be in this mess. But we should always make sure that the government isn't taking money from the individual and giving it to corporations that don't need it.
yeah. Donald, Indiana seems like it's probably the best affiliate. I mean, I hear they raise the most money per capita. What do you think makes Indiana so successful as a Libertarian Party affiliate?
Well, I don't know. Let me put it to you this way. I don't know how any of the other affiliates run.
Okay.
And I don't know who the other affiliates, I think here again, in my opinion, that the and I won't say the elected leadership, I will say that we have strong mentorial leadership in Indiana, the Sam Goldsteins, the Mark Rutherfords. These people have been libertarians for a long time. They've been active, they are supportive, and they want to see the party succeed and grow. And because when new, younger libertarians are introduced into the party, these folks take them under their wing and they welcome them. And here again, I think a lot of it has to do with the idea that, we don't have a quiz that we hand people at the door that if they have to pass to be libertarian enough to be part of we want people who are libertarian. The phrase libertarian
Yeah.
curious, I always chuckle when I hear that, but I think I think it's relevant. I
Yeah.
think what we have to do is understand that people are not going to come to us 100% libertarian, and we have to take them where they are, welcome them, and then help them to mature into a libertarian mindset that works for them. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to agree on every nuanced point of our platform. And I think that that's part of why Indiana succeeds, is because, for example, during 2020, there were a lot of new people who came to the party because they learned of the party through my campaign. Now, some of those folks have fallen off, but a lot of them have stuck and become very, very valued members of the state party because they were welcomed in a way that they didn't feel like they didn't belong.
Yeah, Donald, I've been wanting to see the Nolan chart disappear for a long time. I really have. I don't see how that can be a good recruiting tool. But yeah, who are some people in the party that you would consider your heroes, or you think
Well,
are doing really good?
I've already mentioned
You mentioned Jeff.
Mark Rutherford.
Yeah,
Um, you know, I
doesn't have to
think,
be Indiana. Anybody,
yeah.
in fact.
Well, I just think I've met a lot of people. I wouldn't call them heroes,
Or just good activists, or
but
good
I just,
intellectuals, or good scholars. Yeah,
yeah. Well,
Laura's
and
wasn't the best one.
I've met a lot of people that I just thought were very, very dedicated. Um, if I don't know if you're familiar with Kristen Alexander here in Indiana. She took over my 2024 campaign halfway through it.
Yeah,
Um, and she's a young lady who's extremely dedicated, and she believes in what she's doing. And I think we have a lot of those folks who maybe aren't in leadership. I tend to believe that sometimes the folks who have ascended to heights on the national level um, think an awful lot of themselves. And if you think a lot of yourself, you're usually not much good to most people because you're too busy thinking about yourself.
yeah,
And I think there are a ton of people that I've met at the last two national conventions that I went to. I was invited to speak in Ohio a few years ago at a regional convention. And I think that the real heroes of the Libertarian Party are the people you don't hear about. The people who go out there and they make the phone calls and they do the door knocking Um, and you don't hear a lot about those folks, and you don't know their names, but they're the folks that are actually making things happen.
Yeah. Where if you were, let's imagine you were named LNC chair tomorrow of the whole National Libertarian Party, what would you do?
I would probably try to get myself woke up and realize that I'm asleep, and that should never happen. I don't I do not see myself as somebody who would uh, be a good national chair, um, because that requires probably a lot more um, smoozing than
Well,
I'm
okay, then
I'm
if
a project manager by trade. That's what I
okay,
do for an occupation. So I believe that if I were the LNC chair, uh, I would probably identify a number of projects that needed to be implemented, and I would break them down into what project managers refer to as work breakdown structures. And I would start finding people that could do these tasks, and we would track these tasks, and we would try to get some stuff done in a very orderly fashion. Um, I don't know what all those things would be, but I think we would be um, very well organized in our
yeah,
approach to things.
certainly. It's just a matter of, what do you, who's how we do that thing. I mean,
Well,
what are some other
I
things
was
that you
very
could,
disappointed when Mark Rutherford did not become the LNC chair
yes.
at the last convention. I think he would have been the right person at the time, um, but that's my personal opinion, and I'm probably a little more than a little biased.
Yeah, yeah, and the party had, also blew a chance to have him be chair back in 2012. I hear only good things. I mean, Donald, the most telling thing is, and I was at the 24 convention,
Mm.
and somebody said, "I'm with the Indian Mises Caucus, and I'm endorsing Mark Rutherford." I mean, that was the most amazing endorsement he could have
Right.
had. And I unfortunately, I was the 19th alternate from Texas, so I did not get a chance to vote in that particular election.
I understand.
I did get to vote for president though, but because Texas has 76 delegates, so there was it's amazing some of these people that just go to the convention and they're barely there, but and they get more votes to be delegates than the alternates who are there the whole time. But anyway,
Right.
yeah, Donald, I did have an ulterior motive out here bringing you on here. I'd like to ask you. You've got a great record in the party. Think you might run for president.
Oh,
What,
no,
what about it?
absolutely not. So I'll tell you, there's three elements to that. One, my my focus is on the state of Indiana, and I'm going to explain why.
Yeah,
I believe that the reason that the federal government is as out of control and corrupt as it is because for a long time, the states have become subservient to the federal government instead of
yes,
maintaining their constitutional responsibility to limit the federal government. And the analogy that I've used is that the states are supposed to be the fence that keeps the federal government in its limited capacity, and that fence is made up of 50 slats. And all 50 have fallen down, and now the federal government is just wandering around aimlessly wherever it wants to, screwing up everything it touches. And until we prop that fence back up the way it's supposed to be, we'll never get the federal government under control.
True. There's a lot of truth to that.
And so when I ran for governor, I said, I want to be the governor that looks at the president of the United States, and I grabbed the 9th Amendment with one hand and the 10th Amendment with the other hand, and tell the federal government to back up. Because in Indiana, we have state sovereignty.
Yes.
And we will, and you want to threaten me and tell me you're not going to give me the money you took from my citizens? That's fine.
Yeah.
You go right ahead. We'll see you in the Supreme Court. And you need, the states need to grow a pair.
They've definitely become subservient, Don. That is a very good point.
And so that's one reason. One, I'm too old for this, to travel around and go to 50 states and go to conventions and campaign. And to be honest, I also don't have the money for that.
Understood. Yeah.
These folks that are able to travel and go to all the state conventions and get the vote and then travel around to campaign.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
There's a
can't.
lot of work
I gotta
involved.
work. I still gotta work for a living,
I
unfortunately.
I totally respect that. It's just that, you've got a good record. I'm just thinking about who might run in 2028. And
Oh,
some people,
I understand, and you know, I think
and
that
yeah,
there
it's
are
a big
plenty
deal.
of people in the party
I mean,
that uh,
yeah, I mean,
could
y-
run,
you could run for office. You can run for governor of Indiana and really never stay in a hotel. I mean, you can go
and
from where you live
I've
and back
done
home
that
and be back home
exactly.
in a day. I mean,
That's right.
yeah, it's small enough that you can do that. Yeah, it's just a thought because I think I'm just thinking about who might run in 2028, and I just don't know who's available. And I definitely, I mean, and unless we have somebody who is really, really famous, I mean, I'd say 5 million Twitter followers, I think our presidential candidate should have some experience running for office. Somebody who should have run for something before they decide they're going to go, climb Mount Everest and run for president. It's a big
Oh
deal.
no, I agree with that totally. And to be honest with you, I would like to see us try to focus on people who have actually won elections before.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, because
Um,
you can say, "Hey, well," if somebody says you can't win, said, "Well, I already have one." Yeah, exactly. I think it's important, and you don't, and I think it's also important to go at, sometimes just to go after people who are winners in life. I mean, Gary Johnson, was a successful businessman. That's a guy
sure,
who's a winner in life. I mean,
yeah,
what I hear about Mark Rutherford, he's really very much a winner in life.
absolutely.
And so it's important to, get more people like that. People who've just really done amazing things. Although at the same time, sometimes the people who really go out and do amazing things don't have time for politics.
You're right. Well, and here again, I think that I'm a big believer in we're supposed to be self-governing, right?
Uh,
Which means we're a citizen government. And part of the reason why our government has gotten so corrupt is the only people who can successfully run for office and win are people who have connections and money. And so the connections and money, it all becomes about that instead of serving your fellow citizens
mhm.
and protecting their individual rights. And so, it'd be nice if it would be great to be able to say, hey, you know, any because when I was growing up, that was the thing was, you know, anybody can grow up and be president of the United States. And today I can say with absolute certainty, no, they can't.
Yeah,
No, they can't.
I think we've got, Donald. The other thing too is, I think I don't know if we have enough focus on mentoring here, and I think mentors are so important.
Absolutely.
But, another thing too is, could some of the people, like some of the some of the leaders in Indiana, maybe they could help mentor some of the other states because it would be great if every affiliate was doing as well as Indiana's doing.
Oh, well, here again, I think if you want to, if you're part of a state affiliate and you want to learn how to uh, grow your state affiliate, I think reaching out to people like Evan McMahon, Kristen Alexander, Mark Rutherford, Sam Goldstein,
Yeah,
these people have know what they're doing, and they all have, each one of those four people that I just mentioned have a different set of talents and skills
yeah,
that they bring to the table. And I think here again, that's what has helped Indiana, is that we do have a diverse group of people with uh, skill sets that complement each other. And we've been able to grow on that.
yeah. Don, another thing too is I think in some places, I don't know if you're familiar with the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, but he says it's important to have the right people on the bus, but you also need to make sure that they're in the right seats on the bus.
Yes,
And I feel like
absolutely.
a lot of places in the Libertarian Party, we have good people, but they're in the wrong seats.
Yes.
And we're very much in favor of, people being free and doing what they want to do, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out if they really go and I mean we've one of our presidential candidates, recent presidential candidates, I know he's fluent in Spanish, but he does very little outreach to Spanish speakers. I'm like, why don't you do this?
Right.
It would, because this is a skill that not everybody has, and it just and what we're talking about Spanish, Donald, I'm kind of obsessed with this guy in Argentina. Do you have anything to say about him? I mean, I think he's
Uh, well, I'll tell you what, I just wish we had more people here in the United States who would do what he did.
yeah,
He stood up unashamed and said, "This is what I think we should do." And when he got into office, he started doing those things.
yeah,
Now, we have lots of folks in the United States who say they're going to do stuff and they do it when they get in office. It's just I don't agree with the stuff they say they're going to do.
but yeah, I think he's very, but Don, he was the lead singer of a Rolling Stone cover band, and he understands. He's a very smart man, but also understands that you have to be a showman, and
Yeah.
he also goes out there and has fun. And activism often seems like it's just, horrible drudgery, especially when you don't win. So you've got to figure out a way to make activism fun.
Well, and I'm going to say something that I know will make a lot of people's toes curl. Okay, but this has nothing to do with policy.
Yeah.
But the Libertarian Party could learn an awful lot about running for office from Donald Trump. Donald Trump identified an ignored group of voters, and he tailored his message to them,
Yeah.
and he entertained and continues to entertain them. And he doesn't care what the people who are never going to agree with him think. He's not trying to change anybody else's mind. He's focused on the people who elected him to office and who will elect him to office. And that is the thing I think we miss most of the time as
Well,
libertarians
I think he
is,
understands. Yeah. I
yeah,
think
he understands people.
he also understands the importance of being a showman, and
Yes.
I told one of our candidates also very politely, but I told him that he uses too many big words. Trump does not do that either.
No.
I mean, we've got to have, I mean, there's a lot of ways to go out there, and a lot of this is just nonverbal. Trump has, he has done those things. Yeah,
And
and
here again, you don't
and
have to
certainly,
like his
it certainly goes
policy
back to
because
the
I
remembrance,
certainly disagree with a lot of what he does
and
policy-wise.
certainly, I think, we're both old enough. We remember the jelly bean. I mean, boy, the most popular president in my lifetime by
Oh,
far was
yeah,
Ronald Reagan. I mean, and boy,
absolutely.
he was an actor, so he got it.
That's right.
But
And you know
you
what?
also spoke to that people,
When I ran
Reagan
for
was the
office, I did
grandfather
a
of the
lot
urban.
of Reagan quoting because people remember Reagan.
Yeah, yeah,
And he said a
if
lot of
you're,
great stuff.
yeah,
He didn't always do
yeah,
what he said, but he had a lot of good stuff to say.
yeah. Reagan often came off as that old grandfather that everybody
That's
loved.
right.
It's
Mhm.
and he did a good job at it. I mean, uh, I certainly think we need people in the party who are able to do that. It's yeah,
Well,
we've
and the
got that.
reality is that here again, that's those people are memorable because they are looking to connect with you. Now, they may not connect with you. Reagan may not have connected with people that are listening to this podcast. Trump, I'm sure, does not connect with everybody listening to this podcast.
Oh, he definitely doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of
But
people.
they connect with people. They they they're not teaching, they're not educating, they're not trying to change anybody's mind. They're connecting with the people that already agree with them,
Yeah,
and they're mobilizing those people through that connection. And I've been talking to several people over the last about the last week about the government shutdown. And I've told everybody, you can blame the government shutdown. If you don't like it, you can blame it on both the Republicans and the Democrats because this is a voter mobilization ploy. They could have let the government shut down last year, but they didn't do it. Why didn't they do it? Because it's not the year before the midterm elections. They are letting this happen now, both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, because they want the voter apathy that has set in to be counteracted by an anger over the government shutdown. If you vote Democrat, you're going to be mad at the Republicans. If you're a Republican, you're going to vote Republican, you're going to be mad at the Democrats. Either way, you're going to get up off the couch and vote in 2026, and that's what they want. And that's the main reason that this shutdown exists, because they don't care about you and me. They don't care about our
yes,
finances. They don't care about our health. They don't care about our education. They only care about their power base and being able to control the trillions of dollars that they control in Congress and how they use that money to better themselves and their benefactors. And so anytime something like this happens and they start talking about, well, they don't care about you, they don't care about you. The reality is neither of them do. All they care about is themselves. Sorry, that's my soapbox for the week.
yeah. There's a lot of. I mean, it's really wild. I listen to her say, "Well, I won't care if the government shut down." Uh, you were in the military for a while, correct?
I was in the Navy for 8 years. Yes, sir.
Oh yeah. What was your experience with that? When was that?
That was from 1982 to 1990.
Just out of high school or what?
I went to a semester of college, and my father was laid off for an entire month of December. So I came home from my semester of college, didn't go back, got a little frustrated with things, and joined the Navy.
Okay, yeah, so so you went in the Navy in 1982 and came out when the Berlin had fallen. That was so good.
Yes, I got out in 1990, right before Desert Storm started.
Yeah, that was a good time to get out.
Yeah. Although I will tell you, there's not a day goes by that I don't regret the fact that I didn't stay in 20 years and get a pension from the government. Because I'm sure anybody who pays taxes realizes that you never get back what you put in.
True. Yeah, I'm sure you would have seen more changes. And it was and you put your life on the line. Did you see any interesting during that time or?
Well, I was actually on the USS Milwaukee, which was an oiler replenisher out of Norfolk, Virginia. We were in the Mediterranean on October 23rd of 1983 when the Marine barracks was blown up in Beirut, Lebanon.
Yeah,
And so we sat
that
off
killed
the
about
coast
250 Marines, right? Something like that.
at 238.
Okay.
Yep. And we were actually on our way down to Haifa, Israel, had to turn around and go back. Um, and that was an interesting time. But, um, I am a firm believer in national defense. It's just a shame that our government doesn't practice it. Our government practices uh, authoritarianism for economic gain. And um, it's a shame that we have so many young men and women who give their life and for the wrong reasons. Not the individual doesn't have the wrong reasons; the government does.
And Scott Talley once told me, he said, being in the military, it either makes you a libertarian or it turns you into a killing machine.
Well, and I think maybe if you're in the Army or the Marine Corps, that's true. Being in the Navy and probably the Air Force, a little bit milder than the Marine Corps and the Army.
Yeah, I always like to say too, what a movie or TV show do you think gets the military experience right, and what really gets it wrong?
Well, I don't know that I've ever seen one that really, really got it right
Yeah.
from my perspective. And I think a lot of the movies glamorize things that don't necessarily aren't as glamorous as what they make it out to be. I will tell you that part of the time I was in the Navy, I was on the USS Kitty Hawk, which was an aircraft carrier out of San Diego. And the majority of Navy pilots are not the people you see on Top Gun.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I also think it helps that, there's so little crossover also between people who've been in the military and then people who are involved with Hollywood. I just wonder how they can possibly get it accurate.
Well, they don't, because here again, they want to entertain, and
Yeah.
accuracy would not be entertaining.
Well, because I've often observed that some of the best comedies are when Hollywood is making fun of itself.
Yes.
You know, and there's a lot of truth to that. Or they're making fun of showbiz,
Yeah.
or they're making fun of the media. I mean, they it really, some, but yeah, there's when you especially go after what it's but I also, it's having been, we've had a few people. And I definitely think that still helps when you run for office. It gives you some credibility that you were in the military. Some people really consider that a good thing to have on their resume. So,
Well, if nothing else, at least I know how screwed up the government is.
oh yeah, that was one thing funny. I mean, by the time I was probably 14, I'd seen every episode of MASH
Mhm.
twice, 2 or 3 times. And I would always laugh so much at the way they would portray the bureaucrats on that show.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a form for everything. Obviously it's older, but oh, fill out a form. Yeah, but yeah, signing forms and all that other things. And I can only imagine how much it's changed since then. And, yeah, the other thing too that I've noticed, and I talk about this a lot though, but veterans have become the loudest voices against war.
Well, absolutely. If you've ever been involved, then you know what, you know. Here
Yeah.
again,
Well,
I think most veterans understand the difference between uh, national defense and what goes on all over the world, um, which is economic in nature, not national defense.
yeah, certainly that's the case. I mean, it wasn't that the case with some of the World War II and World War I vets that I encountered, but since then, it's really great
Right.
to see. Yeah. Well,
Well, Dwight D. Eisenhower tried to warn us about the
oh yeah,
military industrial complex. And the reality is that if you look at, and I tell people this all the time, look at the money that we give to uh, Ukraine or Israel, um, and then if you could track, what do they do with that money? Well, I'll bet they spend a lot of it with Lockheed Martin
oh yeah,
and these defense contractors. Um, and the reality is that in a lot of ways, I feel like it's a form of money laundering. Instead of the government giving money directly to these defense contractors, they give it to another country. The other country spends it with the defense contractors, and then it doesn't look like we're practicing active corporate welfare.
yes, accurate, active corporate welfare. It really is, and and so many, at least when I was in high school, I remember the guys who went in the military. They were completely apolitical. They didn't even think about politics. It's
Right. Well, the reality is I'm a big fan of Mark Twain. And
yes,
I like what Mark Twain said, you know, um, patriotism is supporting your country all the time and your government when it deserves it.
yeah,
And if we are voluntary um, association, if we believe in voluntary association, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm an American. There's nothing wrong with that. And being proud to be an American. There's nothing wrong with that. It's free association. Just as long as you don't associate being an American with whatever my government
yeah.
does, it's okay.
I just thought of it. I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon. I just
Yeah.
realized one question I've long wondered about. Why does Indiana change their license plate every year?
Well, they don't anymore.
Okay, but they were doing that for so long.
Well, here again, we this is a
And
sticking
everybody has
point
to
for
change
me.
their license plate, it seems. Yeah.
Well, because that's one way to justify the excise tax that they charge, which is outrageous. And here again, you know, we've just become so accustomed to this idea that they can just whatever tax they want to charge, it's justified. And it's not. And the reality is you pay in Indiana, you pay a 7% sales tax when you buy a car. And then every year you got to pay them an excise tax to be able to put it on the road. And that's just ridiculous. That
Yes.
to me is double taxation. And again, I'm okay with figuring out how to fund the government in a way for the government to do what it has to do. But we need to do a better job of you can't let the government define what its job is, because that's how we got into trouble. The government, the inmates are deciding on how the penitentiary is going to be run, and the government decides what its job is, how much money it needs from you in order to do its job, and how dare you question it. That's all backwards, folks.
Yeah.
The reality is the government is supposed to do what the Constitution says, what the people say. And now here again, we don't live in and that's a word that, I hate it when people say our democracy is under attack. We don't live in a democracy, folks. It's not supposed to be majority rule. We're supposed to live in a constitutional republic where we elect people to represent us in our quest to have our individual rights protected and nothing else. And when we get back to that, I think we'll be on the right track. Now, don't ask me if I think we'll ever get back to that, because it took 250 years to screw this up. It's going to take a long time to fix it. But we've got to keep reminding people, government is not supposed to be the boss. Government is supposed to be the security guard at the door to make sure that our individual rights are protected,
Yes.
not the CEO of the corporation.
That's true. Well, it's been great having you on here, Donald.
I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, where can we find you out there on the web?
Well, right now you probably can't. You might be able to find me in the near future. I'm considering possibly getting a group of people together to start a foundation to raise money to help pay for tuition for families that want to get their children out of government education, government accredited education. I think that that's very important. I don't think you can fix government education. The best way that we can impact government education is to starve it to death. And the way to starve it to death is to create competition for it through privately, regionally accredited educational platforms, and privately fund that and encourage people to take their kids out of public school and put them somewhere where they feel their child is going to get the right education for them, because I believe that every child is unique and that one size fits all public education is our problem, not our solution. So I'm not all the way there yet, Chris. But folks can kind of keep an eye out for that. I think that's something that's probably going to pop up in the next year or so.
Okay, well, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Check out the Substack, and people are giving me money at buymeacoffee.com. Thank you, Donald Rainwater. I'm Chris Baker. We're out.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.